All right, let's talk about Croatia. Now, I know what you're thinking. Gorgeous coastlines, stunning islands, right? But that's just the surface. The real story here is one of incredible resilience. It's a saga of survival, forged at the collision point of massive empires for centuries. So that brings us to the central question, really. How does a place that looks like a literal paradise on a postcard also end up being a historic battleground? I mean, we're talking Romans, Ottomans, Venetians, Habsburgs. They all wanted a piece of it. That's the paradox of Croatia. Its geography has been both its greatest blessing and its biggest curse. Okay, look at this map. This right here explains everything. Croatia isn't just in a region, it's where three worlds smash together. You've got the organized, almost clockwork feel of Central Europe to the north. Then you have the sun-drenched, vibrant, sometimes chaotic energy of the Mediterranean on the coast. And it all sits right at the edge of the deep, complex history of the Balkans. Being at this intersection made it a prize, a super important trade route, and a frontier where armies and cultures would clash again, again, and again. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start way, way back with its ancient roots. Then we'll see the rise of the very first Croatian kingdom. After that, we'll cover the long centuries under foreign kings, navigate the absolute chaos of the 20th century, and finally bring it all home to modern-day independence. First stop, we're going way back. I mean, way back. Long before there was a Croatia, or even the idea of it, this land was already ancient. You know, it's just mind-blowing how deep the human story goes here. We're talking 130,000 years ago to the Croatia Neanderthal site. This isn't just some random cave. It's one of the most important Neanderthal sites on the planet. And get this, archaeologists are still arguing over what they found. Was it a crime scene, evidence of cannibalism, or was it something more spiritual, like a sacred burial ground? The jury's still out, but either way, you can see this land has been home to sophisticated cultures for an incredibly long time, like the Vucedol, who are so good with metal, they're sometimes called the Troy of the Danube. All right, fast forward a bit, and who shows up? You guessed it, the Romans. They came, they saw, they conquered, and they built some incredible stuff. The crown jewel, without a doubt, is Diocletian's palace in Split. But here's the thing, it's not just a palace, it's a fortress palace. Think of it as the ultimate retirement home, but with really, really good security. You can see the military layout in its bones. And what's amazing is that centuries later, when a nearby Roman city fell, people fled and moved inside the palace walls, turning the emperor's old home into the living heart of a brand new city. So Rome falls, and there's a power vacuum. And into this vacuum come the people who give the country its name, the Croats. But who were they, exactly? Well, the main idea, the one most historians land on, is the Slavic theory, that they migrated down from the area around Poland and Ukraine in the 7th century. But there are other theories too, like the idea that maybe a non-Slavic military elite led Slavic tribes and then just blended in over time. It's a fascinating debate, but at the end of the day, what matters is this. A new Slavic power had arrived and was here to stay. Okay, so these tribes arrive, settle in, and now it's time for the next big step, going from a collection of tribes to a full-fledged, independent kingdom on the map of Europe. So how do you do that? Well, it happens step by step. First, a leader named Branimir gets official recognition from the Pope. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but back then it was like getting a seat at the UN. It made you legit. Then comes King Tomislav, who unites the two halves of the country into one kingdom. The whole thing hits its absolute peak under Petar Krešimir IV, who expanded the kingdom to its largest size ever. This was it, the golden age of the first Croatian state. But, as so often happens in history, golden ages don't last forever. The native royal line dies out, and Croatia's story takes a major, major turn, entering a long phase of being ruled by foreign powers, all while facing a new threat from the east. So, for the next 800 years, Croatia basically lives a double life. The inside part, the continental heartland, gets tied to the Kingdom of Hungary. It kept its own name and some rights, but its political fate was linked to Budapest. But the coast? Oh, that was a whole different world. That became the playground of the powerful Venetian Republic. And you can literally still feel this today. The inland has that Central European vibe, while the coast feels pure Italian Renaissance. And while all this is happening, a massive new power is rising, the Ottoman Empire. As it pushes into Europe, Croatia suddenly finds itself right on the bloody front line. It earned a title for this, Ante More Christianitatis, the bulwark of Christendom. And listen, this was not some fancy honorary name. It was a job description, written in blood and fire. It defined the nation's identity for centuries as the resilient defender of Europe's frontier. So, how do you defend a border that's constantly under attack? The Habsburg emperors in Vienna came up with a radical solution: the military frontier. Imagine a huge chunk of your country being turned into a permanent military zone, run directly by the army. The deal for settlers was simple. We'll give you free land, but you and your sons and their sons are soldiers for life. This created a unique, hyper-militarized society that held the line for centuries. But man, it left a complicated ethnic and political legacy that would echo right into our own time. All right, buckle up. We're now heading into the most chaotic, turbulent, and violent period of them all, the 20th century. It is a wild, wild ride. I mean, just look at this. The speed of change is just dizzying. 1 minute, you're in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which has been around forever. Poof, it collapses. You're independent for like 5 minutes. Then you're roped into a new kingdom with Serbs and Slovenes. Tensions explode. The main Croatian political leader is assassinated in parliament. Then World War II hits, bringing with it a horrific Nazi puppet state, followed by liberation and a new life inside Tito's socialist Yugoslavia. It's just one massive upheaval after another. Now, life in socialist Yugoslavia did bring peace and stability after all that chaos. But there was a catch. And this quote really gets to the economic reality of it. The state controlled everything. You couldn't just start a business and grow it. Decisions were made for you. And when people can't build their own futures or make their own economic choices, frustration starts to simmer. That simmering economic frustration piled on top of old political tensions was a huge part of why the whole thing eventually came apart. And that unraveling brings us to the final, dramatic chapter of our story, the bloody birth of a modern sovereign Croatia and its long journey back to the heart of Europe. After communism fell, the moment of truth came. Croatia held a referendum on independence, and the answer was absolutely deafening: 93%. Just let that number sink in. That's not a simple majority, that's a roar. The people had spoken loud and clear. There was no turning back now. But independence wasn't just about a vote. It had to be fought for. The Croatian War of Independence, the Homeland War, was brutal and destructive. But, and this is the theme of our whole story, right? Look what happens the second the fighting stops. The economy just rockets upward. That's not just a number on a chart. That is resilience in action. That's a nation determined to rebuild, no matter the cost. After the war, Croatia had one clear goal: rejoin the West, and they systematically checked every single box. First up, joining NATO in 2009, security, check. Then the big one, joining the European Union in 2013, a huge, monumental moment. And just a decade later, in 2023, they went all in, joining the passport-free Schengen zone and adopting the euro. The long journey back to Europe was officially complete. So where does that leave Croatia today? Well, economically, things are looking pretty good. As you can see, growth is strong, actually better than a lot of the EU average, and unemployment is steadily dropping. Joining the club has really paid off, especially for tourism. But there's one big flashing warning light on the dashboard. And here it is. This is the single biggest challenge the country faces, bar none. In just 10 years, the population fell by nearly 10%. That is a massive deal. It's a combination of young, skilled people leaving for jobs in Germany or Ireland and a low birth rate at home. Tackling this demographic crisis is absolutely everything for the country's long-term health and future. So, we come full circle, right back to that crossroads. For centuries, Croatia was a bulwark, a defensive wall, holding the line between worlds. Today, it has transformed itself into a gateway, a fully integrated member of the European family, connecting the continent to the Balkans. It has weathered empires, survived devastating wars, and rebuilt itself to get here. The crucial question now is, after proving its resilience for over 1,000 years, what role will this nation at the crossroads choose to play in the century to come?